Madden holiday is here and we will play all night. Calling sick and sound sincere, in tackles will delight. The fridge is packed with drink and meat, the taste of victory sure is sweet.
Yep, the NFL schedule was announced this past week, and we're going to go through a little bit of a preview thing here. So, we're not going through game by game. We're just going to go through week by week and look at some of the more noteworthy matchups. I mean, obviously, we should probably just start off with the kickoff game, which is, of course, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers hosting the Dallas Cowboys. I know it's traditional that the Super Bowl champion hosts the Thursday game, so it makes sense, and I think this is a good way to move the needle because people either love the Dallas Cowboys or they hate the Dallas Cowboys. And, of course, they either love Tom Brady or they hate Tom Brady. So I think, again, this is probably going to help drive those ratings through pretty well. Kind of reminds me of something I thought of a few years ago, back when the Eagles won Super Bowl 52. It's just, I thought, well, there's your money matchup. You put the Cowboys against the Eagles. That's what everyone wants to see, and they didn't do it. So I'm kind of glad they kind of did this right here where it seemed to make a lot more sense. And again, like, you couldn't do a rivalry with it in a division because, the NFC South, really the chief rival for the Bucs right now would probably be, I have no idea. I mean, Drew Brees retired, so I don't know how much the Saints would count in this case. And, the Falcons and Panthers are kind of in rebuilding modes, so I don't know how much attention that would be able to work with. So, yeah, I think this is a good way to start things off. After that, some of the more noteworthy matchups, especially to members of my own family, include the Vikings hosting the Cincinnati Bengals in Week 1. Should be kind of interesting. We have the big LSU reunion between Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and Justin Jefferson there. The Cleveland Browns then go on to face the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium. Again, rematch of the divisional playoff, high-powered offenses. See if the Chiefs have any Super Bowl loss hangover there. And the Arizona Cardinals are taking on the Tennessee Titans. Yes, the Cardinals are the team nearest and dearest to my brother's heart there. We have the Sam Darnold Bowl with the Panthers hosting the New York Jets. Obviously, that was the big trade that offseason. Then we have the Packers taking on the New Orleans Saints and Aaron Rodgers, which I'm sure we're all tired of at this point. But yeah, so yeah. Anyway, after that, we have the Sunday night game, which is going to be the Bears going to SoFi Stadium to take on the Rams. I think this is kind of a make-up for last year. Remember, the Rams were supposed to inaugurate SoFi Stadium by hosting the Cowboys, but because of the Backstreet Boys reunion tour, that wasn't held in front of a crowd, so at least now they can get one in front of a crowd and get more of a gauged interest into the interest of the team there. So, yeah. And rounding things off, we only have one Monday night game to start the season. I'll get to what happens with the Monday night doubleheader a little bit later. But yeah, it's the Ravens taking on the Raiders in Las Vegas. Again, kind of like the Sunday night game earlier, they inaugurate a new stadium, at least now with a crowd, and a DJ, and a dance club, and blackjack, and hookers, and you know what, just forget the football stadium. So, yep, that concludes our look at Week 1, and then we'll move on to Week 2. Now, like I said before, we're going to go through week by week and talk about some of the more noteworthy games. We're actually going to be more respectful, unlike other so-called schedule recap and review shows where, yeah, they're going to be 3 hours long, but 2.5 of those hours is going to be spent talking about one game, and then, maybe the last half hour we'll talk about other things. Like in this case, it was just mainly about Aaron Rodgers being traded. Anyway, moving on to the games themselves, some of the noteworthy ones include the Thursday night game of Week 2, which is the Giants taking on Washington. The Cardinals are taking on the Vikings. The Browns are taking on the Texans. The Ravens are taking on the Chiefs in the Sunday night game, and the Monday night game is the Lions versus the Packers. So, yeah, it was a pretty slim week here in Week 2, but yeah, it kind of happens early on in the season. I mean, teams are still finding things out, so it can be hard to gauge something that appears interesting at first. So, yeah, maybe not so much to pick from there, but could be interesting down the line. Okay, so here we are at Week 3. The Thursday night game is the Panthers against the Texans. Typical Thursday night game there, really. After that, we have the Bears taking on the Browns, the Cardinals taking on the Jaguars, so Kyler Murray versus Trevor Lawrence should be a little interesting there. The Seahawks take on the Minnesota Vikings. Hopefully this won't come down to a decision inside the goal line again. The Packers take on 49ers in the Sunday night football matchup. Again, I said the Packers show up a lot during this, even more so than the Buccaneers, so yeah, it's kind of surprising given the Bucs being the Super Bowl champs. You think they would actually have the most primetime games this year, but that's just not the case. And then we round things off with the Monday night game, which is the Cowboys and the Eagles. Yeah, that's kind of a typical Monday night game right now. So with Monday Night Football, I believe this year it's all being simulcast on both ESPN and ABC, but next year with the new broadcast deal, it will move to ABC exclusively, and then the Thursday night game is going strictly to Amazon next year. This year they're still on Fox, so just a bit of an explanation there, and we'll move on to Week 4. Okay, moving on to Week 4, the Thursday night game is the Jaguars and the Bengals, so the two last number 1 draft picks, and should be interesting there. I mean, Burrow versus Lawrence. I think both teams are going to be pretty improved this year. I don't know. I mean, they're not going to be hugely improved or playoff contenders necessarily, but I think that should at least be an entertaining game to watch there. Let's see, the Browns are taking on the Vikings after that. The Colts take on the Dolphins. The Cardinals take on the Los Angeles Rams. The Steelers take on the Packers. None of those are nationally televised games. Those are all basically local broadcast. The Sunday night game is the Buccaneers and the Patriots. I wonder what they're going to start hyping up there. Then we have the Raiders and the Chargers on Monday Night Football to round things off there. So, yeah, pretty decent there. Obviously, the big game there is the Tom Brady New England Patriots reunion there. I know a lot of people would probably say that the Buccaneers are going to stomp that, but remember when Peyton Manning returned to Indianapolis, the Broncos lost that game. So hey, you never know how these things could shake out. Like, there could be some extra motivation for those Patriots players to play there. Remember, I think the Patriots should be a better team this year too. They lost a lot of guys last year because a lot of them opted out due to the pandemic and everything. So yeah, it's kind of understandable there. So anyway, let's move on to Week 5. Okay, moving on to Week 5, the Thursday night game is the Rams facing the Seahawks. Again, this is kind of expected for the Thursday night game, isn't it? I mean, it seems they always face each other on a Thursday. After that, we have the first of our London games with the Jets taking on the Atlanta Falcons from Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. The Lions will be taking on the Minnesota Vikings. The 49ers will be taking on the Cardinals. The Sunday night football game is a rematch of the AFC Championship between the Bills and the Chiefs. And the Colts and the Ravens face each other on Monday Night Football that week. So, yeah, that should be pretty interesting there. Yeah, other than that, though, I mean, pretty pedestrian matchups this week, though it's still not the worst week. We're coming up to that. Trust me, you'll see. Week 6 starts with the Buccaneers taking on the Eagles for Thursday Night Football. Sorry, there was a car going by the window there. Anyway, moving on, we have our next London game, which is the Dolphins taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. The oldest rivalry in the NFL is kicked up with the Packers taking on the Bears. By the way, Aaron Rodgers. The Minnesota Vikings will be taking on the Carolina Panthers. The Arizona Cardinals will be taking on the Cleveland Browns. Sunday Night Football is the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers, so that could actually be kind of interesting, see how those teams match up against each other. And Monday Night Football is the Bills versus the Titans again. So look forward to a lot of Derrick Henry running there. Anyway, pretty decent week here, I think, in terms of matchups. Again, we definitely see where the Aaron Rodgers thing is coming down. Now, obviously, that's not a national showcase. Well, it's going to be the national showcase game, but I don't know how competitive that will be. But at least, maybe we'll see Rodgers against Fields. And, anyway, let's move on to Week 7. Okay, so Week 7 is definitely the, on paper, least exciting week here looking at these previews. I mean, there's just really nothing to get too worked up about. The Thursday night game is the Broncos versus the Browns. We have the Matthew Stafford Jared Goff Bowl with the Lions taking on the Rams. The Texans are hosting the Cardinals, so you get the DeAndre Hopkins JJ Watt Bowl there, I guess. Then the Colts and the 49ers are on Sunday Night Football, and the Saints take on the Seahawks for Monday Night Football. So, yeah, it's not exactly the greatest matchups there at all, are they? I mean, even the Sunday night game, Colts versus 49ers, I mean, I'm sure it won't be a bad game, but it's just, yeah. I mean, I haven't gotten to talk much about the 49ers, who obviously drafted North Dakota State quarterback Trey Lance, so there's a little bit of interest there. I get to see him play, hopefully, so, I mean, that's about it. It's just, yeah, very banal. Okay, moving on to Week 8, the Thursday night game is the Packers versus the Cardinals. And, okay, let's talk about Aaron Rodgers. I don't think he's going to necessarily be going anywhere, at least for this season. If they would have traded him, they would have traded him before the draft and gotten that guaranteed top 10 pick, rather than trade him and maybe get a top 10 pick. But, I mean, obviously, if he were to go to a team, he would probably improve them enough that it would not be as good a draft pick as you'd think it was. So, yeah, I don't see it happening, at least not this year. Moving on to the non-Thursday games, the Steelers take on the Browns, the Patriots take on the Chargers, the Buccaneers take on the Saints, the Cowboys go to the Vikings on Sunday Night Football, and the Giants visit the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. Yep, again, kind of a pedestrian week there. I mean, the only interesting game of note, I think, would be that Patriots-Chargers game, just to see, again, if the Chargers are improved as much as they are. And, obviously the Thursday night game is, on paper, pretty interesting, too, so I'll give it that. But, yeah, again, kind of hard to pick noteworthy games there. Moving on to Week 9, the Thursday night game is the Jets versus the Colts. The Vikings travel to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. The Browns take on the Bengals. The Packers take on the Chiefs in the game of the day that isn't on Sunday Night Football, so that's kind of weird. Then we have the Cardinals taking on the 49ers. The Sunday night game is the Titans versus the Los Angeles Rams. And the Monday night game is the Bears taking on the Steelers. I guess there are obviously some games of interest there. Again, Packers and the Chiefs being the obvious one. And the Sunday and Monday night matchups don't look too bad, but they're not that inspired. I mean, obviously, with these schedules the way they are, where, you have to take on a certain division, so you can only get what you can. But still, I think this could be an interesting week, and it's starting to pick back up after a couple weeks of ho-hum. But first, we have some breaking news to discuss.
Run. A really nice job swarming to the ball carrier.
Into heavy traffic, and it's intercepted. Picked by Antoine Winfield Jr. And the return stops just a few yards shy of midfield. They'll spot the ball at the 47-yard line. What a start defensively. Your offense goes out, gets the touchdown, and then you get the interception.
That's right. You heard it here first, folks. Touchdowns now only count as 3 points. Now, back to the schedule review. All right, we're starting to enter the home stretch here. Week 10 kicks off with the Thursday night game between the Ravens and the Miami Dolphins. We then get a rematch of one of the exciting games from last year, the Cowboys taking on the Atlanta Falcons. The Browns are going to visit the New England Patriots. The Vikings are going to take on the Los Angeles Chargers. The Carolina Panthers are going to take on the Arizona Cardinals. The Sunday night game is the Chiefs versus the Raiders, and the Monday night game is the Rams versus the 49ers. My notes are a little off here because they didn't quite list these things very well, and so one game didn't look quite right on there, and I put the wrong one in, so that's about the only noteworthy thing there. Yeah, definitely, again, we're picking up in interest, I guess, except for that Sunday night game. That's pretty bad for a Sunday night game, and we're not in the flex scheduling yet, so nothing to note there. Week 11 kicks off with the Patriots taking on the Falcons for the Thursday night game. Then moving to the Sunday games, we have the Lions taking on the Browns. Another battle of rookie quarterbacks with the 49ers taking on the Jaguars. The Packers visit the Vikings. The Cardinals visit the Seahawks. The Sunday night game is the Steelers taking on the Los Angeles Chargers. And the Monday night game is the Giants versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Again, kind of a more mundane week this time. Still, again, the 49ers-Jacksonville matchup should be pretty interesting, but other than that, I don't know about any of these games, really. My thoughts on the Vikings this year are a little mixed bag. I don't know what exactly it's going to be. They seem to follow up a really good year with a really average year, so last year they were average, so hopefully this year they'll be pretty good, but you can't say for certain, can you? Week 12 begins with the Thanksgiving triple header. The Bears take on the Detroit Lions, the Las Vegas Raiders visit the Dallas Cowboys, and the Bills take on the Saints. So, definitely a rather interesting matchup this year, at least with the primetime one. I'm usually kind of burnt out at that point, so I rarely watch the primetime game, but admittedly, Bills Saints is kind of intriguing. I certainly find it a bit more inspired than Raiders Cowboys, okay? Anyway, other games include the Vikings taking on the 49ers, the Browns taking on the Ravens during Sunday Night Football, and the Monday night game being the Seattle Seahawks against the Washington Football Team, which is, I think, the first time I've mentioned the Washington Football Team since week 2, so, yeah, at least they're finally getting another showcase game to talk about there. I guess maybe I'll wait a little bit to get my thoughts on what I think the Browns are going to do this year, so, see you all in the next week. Week 12 seems to be pretty much in competition for the second worst week of the season, at least going by these early previews here. The Thursday night game is the Cowboys and the Saints because we make teams compete on back-to-back Thursdays for some reason. I've never really understood that. The Vikings take on the Lions. The Cardinals visit the Bears. Who do they think they are? The 49ers take on the Seahawks on the Sunday night game, and the Monday night game is the Patriots versus the Bills. Really, the only game of note, I think, is that Bills one on Monday night. I think just, again, can Buffalo carry over the success from last year? Have the Patriots improved enough so that this will be a competitive game again? Or, are the Bills just the big boys of the block now? You're never entirely sure. The Browns are off this week, but I guess I could talk a little bit about them. This is one where I'm a little nervous. They had their big success last year, but I wonder if this is a team that could get bitten by that success a little bit. It sort of reminds me back in, I think it was 2005, the Vikings were sort of thought to be a vastly improved team. And the previous year, that was the last year of Randy Moss, and they pulled off a surprise upset of the Packers in Green Bay. Like, the Packers had pretty much dominated the season series, and then suddenly they just went and flopped like a dead fish in that wild card game, and suddenly the Vikings were going to Philadelphia into the divisional round and actually hung with the Eagles for a half. I mean, that was an Eagles team that made the Super Bowl that year. So again, it seemed logical that they could, build on that success a little bit. But still, and then they came out that first week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and on the first drive they had a backwards pass get recovered, and it just all fell apart there. That they started out 2-5, and then Dante Culpepper got hurt, and obviously they traded Randy Moss during the offseason as well. But still, it was thought that they had improved enough that they would have a better record, and they were basically barely eliminated from the playoffs despite a late season rally. So yeah, again, that kind of vibe is what I'm feeling from the Browns right now. So hopefully they don't do something like that, but you're never entirely sure when a team gets sudden success like they did last year. So again, that's kind of interesting there. Okay, not too many games of note really to talk about Week 14. The Thursday night game is the Steelers and the Vikings. The Ravens take on the Browns again. The Bills visit the Buccaneers, and probably the game of the week there. But the Sunday night game is the Bears going to Green Bay. And yeah, just that. Anyway, and then we round things off with the Cardinals taking on the Rams for Monday Night Football. So yeah, we're definitely getting towards the end of the season here, if you can feel it a bit. The flex scheduling, I believe, starts next week, actually. So we'll talk about that in Week 15. Okay, so flex scheduling is now in effect, starting with Week 15 here. The Thursday night game is the Chiefs and the Chargers. The Packers take on the Ravens. The Cardinals visit the Lions. And then the Sunday Night Football is listed as the Saints and the Buccaneers, but it's possible the Raiders versus the Browns could get flexed into that. So they've listed a bunch of games as being flex eligible, at least for Week 15. I don't know so much about the rest of them. Anyway, the Monday Night Football game is then the Vikings visiting the Bears. So, yeah, definitely, again, a lot of divisional matchups here, but it should be a little intriguing. I think the Chiefs and Chargers is probably the most intriguing there, so at least that could provide some entertainment. But yeah, definitely kind of a safe week. Hopefully things can get exciting at that point. Okay, Week 16 starts off with the 49ers taking on the Titans for the Thursday night game. Then our next two matchups are on the Saturday because that's Christmas. So we have the Browns taking on the Packers and the Colts and Cardinals squaring off against each other on Christmas Day. Not quite in the morning, but on Christmas Day at least. Then moving to Sunday, we have the Rams taking on the Vikings, the Steelers taking on the Chiefs, the Cowboys taking on Washington on Sunday Night Football, of course that could always be flexed out, and the Dolphins taking on the Saints for Monday Night Football. So, yeah, definitely kind of unique to see the Browns and Packers and Colts and Cardinals facing on Saturday at least. I think those are all pretty good matchups. Hopefully there'll be some playoff implications on the line there. So, again, maybe something worth watching there on Christmas Day. Not quite in the morning. Okay, with Week 17, the Thursday night games are over. All of these games are on Sunday and Monday. The Cardinals are taking on the Cowboys. The Colts visit the Raiders. The Ravens visit the Rams visit the Ravens. See, I'm getting these backwards all the time. I'm sorry. The Vikings visit the Packers for Sunday Night Football, and the Browns visit the Steelers for Monday Night Football. I think, it's hard to say. I guess that Browns-Steelers matchup is probably the big one there. But yeah, other than that, hopefully, again, if the way this season shakes out, who knows? But hopefully that could be pretty intriguing. And let's move on to the last week and the unique scenarios that play in there. Okay, so the first ever 17-game season in the NFL history comes down to a very unique scenario here in Week 18. There are no Sunday night games listed, and there are no Monday night games listed. In fact, Monday Night Football is actually getting a doubleheader the last week of the season, and those games will be flexed in to provide possible win and in scenarios. So, yeah, obviously, traditionally, the NFL flexes in the Sunday night game, especially that last week of the season, so again, we can get a nice big playoff predictor, hopefully, but yeah, in this case, it should be rather interesting. So, it's all divisional matchups this last week, so let's take a look at what they are, or at least what some of them are. The Bears visit the Vikings, the Packers visit the Lions, the Bengals visit the Browns, which means the Steelers visit the Ravens, the Seahawks visit the Cardinals, which means the Rams visit the 49ers, or at least the 49ers visit the Rams, maybe. The Raiders take on the Chargers, which means the Chiefs take on the Broncos, and the Panthers take on the Buccaneers, so the Saints take on the Falcons. I think that's all, at least all that I've ever written down here. So, yeah. Don't know what exactly that's going to shake out to be. Again, I think the division matchups are probably a little weak this year. Again, I think because there's a lot of one-team divisions. The NFC South isn't as strong as it was last year. The AFC East, I think, is actually a lot better, and that one's probably going to be a little bit more interesting. I would be surprised if they're the one that get the most flex games there. But still, there's always a chance that things could shake out in a different way. Everything looks pretty good here, so that concludes our little preview thing. So I'll wrap things up in the next segment.
So you are claiming Mr. Randall yelled, "You're in my house now, Dorothy. Your mama can't save you now"?
You're mine, boy.
And then he called you a little schoolgirl? Is that true, Mr. Randall?
No, Your Honor. I simply said he looked better in a little schoolgirl's uniform.
NFL Extreme 2, with all the bone-crunching, smack-talking arcade action you'd expect from pro football's best players.
Bailiff, remove this wuss from my courtroom.
Okay, so I'm not entirely sure when exactly this is going to come out. I'm aiming to get this up on Sunday, May 16th, which means the next video should be the recap and review for WrestleMania Backlash. However, if I haven't gotten it up by then, that means that was the previous video, and the next video is going to be the random trade review on Batgirl Stephanie Brown. I'm hoping I can get that up on Saturday the 22nd, but it might not be until Sunday the 23rd, because that one's shaping up to be kind of long. It's 12 issues, and there's also a whole lot of backstory to try to cover there. But still, we should still have some regular content coming up here soon. So hopefully you found this entertaining, and I can see you all next time. Bye.